everybody. Welcome to the Energy Newsbeat podcast. My name's Stu Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group. We got a really fun one today. I have a lot of passion for the ecology and low-cost power, and we happen to have an expert here. We have Matt Welch. He's Executive Vice President of the Texas Geothermal Energy Alliance. Welcome, Matt. Thank you very much for coming by.
Thanks, Stu. It's good to be with you. Listen, if a liberal arts major from Texas A&M University can be a geothermal expert, anybody can be a geothermal expert.
Oh, hey, if an Oklahoma State graduate can be a podcast host, anybody can be a podcast host.
Sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. Well, it's great to be with you today. I look forward to talking to you about geothermal energy in Texas.
Well, you and I both share a lot of the same values, and that is we believe in delivering the lowest cost kilowatt per hour to all consumers, anybody, disproportionately impacted communities, disproportionately impacted countries. Get the price down, make it sustainable, get that power down there with the least amount of impact on the environment. That's why we're having this discussion today. You've got a new group, and tell us about the Geothermal Alliance.
Well, Stu, we were known as TexGEA, the Texas Geothermal Energy Alliance.
Okay.
We are the newest trade association, the new kid on the block in Austin. Cool. We're focused at the state level. We're going to be doing state legislative education and advocacy. There are national efforts that focus at the federal level, but for right now, TexGEA is focused on putting geothermal energy on the map in Texas. And you talked about cost, price, availability. Right. And yet again, Texas is blessed with a natural resource. Not a lot of people know about it yet, but they're soon going to, because there is tremendous opportunity right underneath our feet. There are going to be well-researched reports coming out very soon that let people know just how much of a resource is right beneath us at varying depths. And, we've got oil and gas plentiful in Texas. We've got plenty of sun, plenty of wind. And now we're going to have some geothermal energy to talk about. Okay. It's not at a price point yet. We're not going to displace anybody yet. But what we do need to do is start the process of bringing geothermal into discussions about the future structure of power grids and how we supply energy to Texans.
Can you explain a little bit about what we're talking about? Because you mentioned geothermal, and geothermal to me means that we're up in Yellowstone, and you got all that pipe, you got all those things, and you just sit there and you have all that done. That makes sense to me. But can you explain what geothermal in Texas means?
Sure. So if you think about Yellowstone, that energy, that steam, is at a very shallow depth, so that it's noticeable to everybody walking around. Same thing in California, the Salton Sea, and I think Ojai, California. There's a bunch of springs that provide a tremendous amount of geothermal power to California's grid. A little bit going on in Nevada, New Mexico, and whatnot. But what we know in Texas from our oil and gas maps is that there are geothermal resources at varying depths and rock formations. And what we're working on now is the technology of geothermal industry players to make that breakthrough. I mean, I call it the tip of the drill bit is what I call it. There are R&Ds and startups in Texas right now working on kind of the last piece of the puzzle to make geothermal viable at greater depths than you see like in Yellowstone or California. So we've got the resource. It's a question of, do we have the technology yet to get it out, and will it be affordable? And all signs point to yes and yes.
I like that. Now, so because this is drilling, are you also talking about the relationship between the oil and gas field?
Absolutely. So, the oil and gas industry in Texas does a lot of things very well, one of which is they drill holes. And so that technology that they have, that workforce, that kind of institutional heft can be deployed in geothermal drilling, and it is right now. And
Right.
so it's the perfect pairing of the kind of the traditional geothermal companies with the oil and gas sector, bringing their technology and training and putting them together for this,
Nice.
this fantastic winning team that is needed to make the breakthrough. I mean, there have been geothermal companies around forever,
Right.
but are they making new breakthroughs with technology?
Right.
Not just yet, but very soon. And you're going to be hearing about some companies in Texas and around the country who are doing phenomenal work, research and development wise, with amazing technology. It's like science fiction, but underground. It's going to be fantastic when we get that resource tapped and can bring it online, bring it up and online.
So instead of the tip of the spear, I love that tip of the drill bit.
The tip of the drill bit.
I'm sorry, I'm going to use it.
It's all yours.
But the fun thing is when you sit back and kind of go, now there's a couple things. The supply chain has just gone bonkers, and it's really doubling the cost of drilling for the oil field service and the rigs and everything else. Is that going to help delay this a little bit, or because where does that new technology that you're working with them come into play? I guess I'm just a little confused on new technology of drilling a hole. I'm not sure if I.
So the kind of in a sweeping generalization, we need new technology to go deeper.
Okay.
That's the bottom line. In Texas, we need new technology to go deeper, where the available resource is greater. And so there's some maps out there. Hopefully they're on the TexGeo website. That by the year 2030, we expect a technology to catch up and make Texas on a resource map. It's just almost bright red, which means there's a heck of a lot of geothermal resource at a certain depth. So we're kind of here now, but if we get down to here in 7 years, we have opened up sky's the limit resource on geothermal production.
Wow.
And one of the critical things to keep in mind right now with the electricity grid stresses and challenges that we face is that geothermal can be a great part of that equation. It's not the solve all, cure all, but what geothermal energy is dispatchable, baseload, reliable energy that is infinitely renewable, but it is not dependent upon the weather. So it can operate anytime you need it. You flip on the switch, up comes geothermal energy to power your needs. And folks are starting to make their decisions based upon this new research and development. And it's just a very exciting time. There are a number of pilot projects around Texas right now that are doing revolutionary things in the geothermal world. And it's Katie bar the door here pretty soon.
Talk about exciting, because I'm really kind of tired about everybody saying they need battery storage to level the grid out in order to keep the wind and solar. We love nuclear because it is a steady eddy, but yet geothermal, from what you're saying, is a little bit more expensive right now from being able to go down deep enough, but it's coming around the corner.
Yep.
But yet it would be a fantastic alternative load balancing, load bearing balancing for the renewables.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so as we've said before, we love to talk about an all of the above approach to energy. And now we get to say we're for all of the above and below, with geothermal being part of the equation. So it just makes good sense to take advantage of this infinitely available resource. We've still got some more homework to do and some more testing, but it's happening right now. Right this minute, there's projects in Texas that are producing geothermal energy and putting it onto, in one example, a local municipal grid in South Texas. There's an Air Force base in Houston that has a pilot project underway to power that Defense Department facility and make it somewhat impervious to grid attack from nefarious actors or weather.
How cool is that?
In the Gulf Coast, you got to worry about a hurricane wiping out everything above the ground.
Right.
All the poles and wires are vulnerable to a Category 5.
Right.
And if you've got some base load backup or, some part of the equation coming from geothermal, you stand a great chance of coming through that storm with the least amount of disruption as possible. So that's another critical area to think about for geothermal.
Oh, I'll tell you, I'm just excited about this because once you get it down, you get the formula there. It is a beautiful renewable energy source, and I don't think you're going to have too much energy storage. Kids mining rare earth minerals, or you're going to have a lot better humanity savings and environment savings by this kind of a process.
Also, in addition to that, what I have learned, and because I'm liberal arts from Texas A&M and not having studied this my whole academic career, a byproduct of geothermal exploration is lithium extraction.
No.
Yeah. Now, it's not in every case. It's not in every area, but there are geothermal operations that have lithium as a byproduct. And so that's a twofer. You get energy and you get rare earth element. So,
and you don't have child labor laws.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Wow.
Sadly, some of that's going on in California. But we got to figure out a way to make that go nationwide. No. I'm sorry. The lithium extraction.
Oh. I was like,
I don't know what Gavin Newsom is doing, a lot of bad things, but I don't think he's involved in child labor, abuses yet. But anyway,
I'm sorry, Matt. I was just like, what? Anyway,
no, I'm talking about the lithium reserves are, from what I've heard from industry players, are somewhat in California right now. Now, we don't know if we go deeper in Texas when the technology comes, if we'll have lithium or other byproducts, beneficial byproducts. But right now, in some areas, lithium is a beneficial byproduct of geothermal energy.
Now, how cool is that?
Yeah.
So also, when we take a look at this, I saw a news article, I think several months ago, and it said something about using orphaned wells for this. Did I miss that, or did I misread
You
it?
have tapped into something that is on the minds of a lot of Texas legislators and regulators, lawmakers, and whatnot. So, as Texans may know, we have thousands and thousands of abandoned oil wells. And that's a liability for the state of Texas. And sometimes we get money from the federal government to plug them. Sometimes there's a state fund to plug them. But that plugging depends upon having the readily available workforce. It's not like the Railroad Commission employs a plugging division to go out and keep plugging. They contract that service out to the people who do it best, the private sector. But that's a function of the oil and gas industry and the strength of the workforce. So in times of depressed drilling, the Railroad Commission can do kind of a more robust job of contracting for the plugging of abandoned wells. But where it comes into play now is that it's a phenomenal leg forward for geothermal energy companies wanting to kind of hit the ground running. They don't have to spend as much money to drill the hole. It's already there. Not every hole is perfectly suited for geothermal operation, but many of them are, or could be, with a little bit of a modification. One of the ideas that we have come up with in TexGea for our legislative discussion is figure out a way for the state of Texas to offload this liability of abandoned wells. So you move it off the books of the state of Texas, and you allow the private sector who need that leg up, the abandoned oil well. The two of them need to come together so that the state offloads the liability. The company can take over ownership of the abandoned well for a period of time. Let's just say 3 years. They can use it. Maybe it works for them, and they take it on to production. Maybe it doesn't work for them, and they have to plug it 3 years later at their expense. So either way, it is off the books of Texas taxpayers and the state, and it benefits industry and getting a leg up on the start of a new geothermal well. And that's going on right now.
This is so cool because what a great use of taxpayer money instead of leaving $84 billion worth of equipment over in Afghanistan
Right.
or spending, was it 40 billion, whatever the number is now, we're sending over to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Think about how many orphan wells we could plug with that.
So it is, sky's the limit there. Now, like I said, not every well is appropriate, but there are industry players in Texas right now who are using abandoned oil wells to drill for geothermal energy. And it's just another opportunity to save money on the cost of a project. Let me talk about another fix, if I could.
Okay, absolutely.
For our legislative agenda, one of the things that we're going to be tackling is who owns the rights to geothermal energy. Is it the surface owner or is it the mineral owner? And that's a huge Pandora's box in Texas law, as you can imagine with our oil and gas industry. So it depends on the technology, is what we've learned. If you are a geothermal company that does closed loop operations, you're not really taking anything out of the ground. You're just taking the heat. And so that might be a situation where the surface owner is compensated, but not the mineral owner, because you're not taking a mineral out. Now, there is a technology.
Unless you have the byproduct of lithium.
Right. Yes. Then that would be a taking, and you would need to get a lease from the mineral owner.
Yeah, I was listening.
There's kind of the traditional. Thank you, Stu. Somebody's listening to me. I appreciate that. And then there's the traditional geothermal operations, which is kind of a directional hole in the ground. You do a floodplain and you pump it back out. You produce steam and heat, and you actually take liquid out, take water out, or some type of something in between. That is definitely a mineral interest owner concern because you're disturbing the mineral owner's holdings. So what industry is telling us, what these players are telling us, is that we need certainty in state law right now for us to have clarity of operation going forward. So for example, there is a company in Texas that wanted to do one of these projects, and they had to go out and sign a lease with both the mineral owner and the surface owner. And that caused the cost of the project to be twice as much money. And they had to do it for liability and just legal protection reasons. So we're going to work to get predictability and certainty and clarity in state law about who owns geothermal energy.
That's just amazing. This whole assistance to forward thinking that the Texas Geothermal Energy Alliance has is critical. This to me is one of the best things that I've heard in a long time about having potential to really impact several major problems. You got additional storage, energy baseline capabilities coming up, saving all of the rare earth minerals or critical minerals. Then you have the ability to help solve some, even if you've got 25% of the orphan wells, that's a huge number.
Yep. I mean, talk about solving a problem with this phenomenal opportunity. It's just a godsend. And, we are on the cusp of making history in the world in terms of energy growth and structure and direction. And it's a very exciting time to be in Texas on the ground as you learn about underground, wherever. And, we're talking about the commercial deployment of utility scale resources. But one thing that I'm a big proponent of is keeping in mind and keeping as part of our team the residential applications of geothermal energy. So with heat pump technology and all sorts of players in the residential construction industry, average citizens have the ability to partake of this phenomenal resource and to obtain a cheap, affordable energy supply for their home. And so it's not just for the big players, it's for the little homeowners as well.
So if my wife comes home, sees me digging in the backyard, she knows I'm digging for thermal, right?
Yeah, she'll give you a bigger shovel and a better drill bit so you can take advantage of the geothermal in your backyard.
All right. So now that people know about you, how do they get to you, or what do you need to make this dream happen?
Well, it's a great question. Thanks for that. So the best thing that people can do is go to our website. It is www.txgea.org.
Right.
Sign up for our newsletter, like us and follow us on social media,
Right.
and help us bring greater awareness about geothermal energy's potential in Texas.
Boy, that is fabulous. All of your information will be in the show notes. So when we put this bad dog out there, it's going to go everywhere. So
Wonderful.
Thank you very much for stopping by, and look forward to visiting with you.
Stu, it's my pleasure. And thanks again for having us.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks.